Ashton continues to live a life of service to Guyana, and we must put our hands together for the family. Not only was he a great man, but importantly, he was a good man. He was not after fame, but preferred working in service to the working class of this country. He was good because he served the workers of Guyana and did so with selfless dedication. In a world where heroes and heroines are often the stuff of fiction, it is a source of great national pride that Guyana can count amongst its sons someone of the pedigree of Ashton Chase. His life straddled many spheres, but his passions were most pronounced in the vocations of labor, the law, and the liberation of Guyana. Very importantly, the liberation of Guyana. Indeed, for him, he struggled for workers' rights. His struggle for workers' rights was inseparable from the struggle for national liberation. The law was to be an instrument in the struggle for both. And this was the context in which he saw the law. He saw the law as something that was alive, something that was a tool, an instrument in the work of representing the struggle for the people. And that is why he was such a brilliant force, because he was able to bring to life the law in the interests of the working people. And that is why he was so deservingly admired. The Caribbean independence was birthed on the backs of the struggles and sacrifices of the working class. Comrade Chase was part and parcel of the trade unions' agitation for freedom from colonial rule. And this is another point. The trade unions' agitation was not limited to workers' rights. The trade unions' agitation at that time went far beyond. The trade unions' agitation was to ensure the freedom of our country. It was to ensure that we break ourselves away from colonial rule. And indeed, that struggle led to us breaking ourselves away from colonial rule, and this deserves a round of applause. He began his advocacy on behalf of workers and dipped his feet in trade unionism from a very early age. Comrade Chase achieved immense accolades in trade unionism. He dedicated his 1976 publication, Trade Union Law in the Caribbean, to his many friends on the waterfronts. He may have climbed the ladder of success, but his feet were firmly planted among the working class. It was in recognition of this that the workers held him in the highest esteem, and his country held him as an important pillar in the struggle for national liberation. When he co-founded the Political Affairs Committee, it was because he saw this as an important vehicle to advance pro-labor aspirations. Within the PAC, Comrade Chase stood tall, literally and figuratively, championing the cause of workers and protesting poverty, exploitative landlordism, land shortage, and land tenure insecurity. Very important component of his life. Through study groups, and this is another important part of his work, He believed strongly in educating the workers.
He believed strongly in educating the population about the struggle. He did not just lead people
into a struggle, but he educated persons on the circumstances that necessitate the struggle. So what did he do? They formed study groups, the PAC bulletin, and direct contact with the working class. Comrade Chase helped to shape working class consciousness. It was not only about providing the leadership, it was about shaping the consciousness of the working class. The PSC would help ready him for his role as a political activist. He became part of the PPP that would reignite the nationalist struggle and push Guyana faster towards political independence. When the PPP was established, Comrade Chase naturally was part of its leadership. This was his second vocation. Within the ranks of the People's Progressive Party, Comrade Chase emerged as a key player in a nationalist struggle. As is known, he was appointed as Minister of Labor in the 1953 PPP government. Unfortunately, the term of the government was truncated as a result of the suspension of the Constitution in 1953. Yet, in this very short time, much was achieved on the labor front during the 4-month reign of the government. Comrade Chase was at the forefront of efforts to improve the wages of chauffeurs and cinema workers, and to
the young people. You might say how important were chauffeurs and cinema workers
in those days. But in the circumstances of Guyana in those days, these were very key and important jobs to provide for families and communities. Very, very key. He fought and led work to institute an 8-hour workday for factory workers and reduce the working hours of watchmen and increase their pay. To investigate the conditions of employment and wages of domestics. To advance plans for improvement in working men's compensation. Including protection against injuries on the job and benefits to dependents, and to press for recognition of the rights of workers in the sugar union, the union of their choice. Comrade Chase would have taught everyone around him to be conscious of the environment that they're in. And in being conscious, I saw some very well-dressed young people earlier struggling with the camera. Obviously, they're on work study. I want to say to them that 28 years ago, I too was on work study at the office of the president struggling with the camera, because that is where I was placed. So don't worry. Continue to hold fast and make use of this opportunity of understanding the work environment and what it entails. Comrade Chase was part of the opposition benches in Parliament between 1964 and 1968. He was a force to be reckoned with. He was known for his preciseness, his deliberate language, and his well-prepared arguments. He presented in Parliament with heart and conviction, with belief and a sense of purpose. He was persuasive, but importantly, he was penetrative. But most of all, he was insightful. The depth of thought, and I urge those who love history and understand how important history and research is to go through his early speeches in Parliament. Comrade Chase in some ways was prophetic in his pronouncement in the House. He warned us on at least 2 occasions that we were heading into a dangerous state of affairs. Speaking in the House at the 18th sitting of the First Parliament of Guyana on the 21st of November, 1966, the Honorable Ashton described the National Security Miscellaneous Provision Bill 1966 as, and I quote, an atrocious piece of legislation. This is what he said, and I'm going to quote. The bill is an atrocious piece of legislation. It was conceived with an end in view that is aimed not at national security, but at the destruction of the legitimate opposition in the country. I speak tonight not because I'm afraid. We accept what will come to us, and we are prepared for what will be meted out to us. But I speak in the interest of freedom for which we have fought and which is now being abused by those who occupy the government benches. End of quote. This is a man speaking at a time when they knew the dangers of saying what he was saying, exposing himself to the dangers that existed, but did so selflessly in the interest of freedom and democracy. That is what you call selfless action. He warned us that the bill was the first step towards the establishment of a fascist dictatorship. And guess what? He was proven correct. It was the first time that he raised an alarm over what was to come. On the 23rd of October 1968, during the debate on the representation of the people, adaptation and modification of laws bill of 1968, he forewarned that the basis was being laid for electoral fraud. This is what he said, and I quote, "The regulations and act, in my view, are laying the basis for fraudulent elections in this country. They're laying the basis for rigged elections in Guyana. We'll have a government by fraud. I have never before seen the depth of political rascality to which these laws descend." I just enjoy the language and I can put myself back there. This is an evil genius afoot. I say without fear of contradiction that if our elections are going to be held under what we have before us this afternoon, this particular bill, the results of the elections will be predetermined. What vision and foresight this man had. Not only the beauty of language and presentation, but the depth of thinking. And the way in which, just thinking back in those days, he would have captured the imagination and gripped the consciousness of the people. If Anil Nanlal was back then and had the media coverage he has now, you could have imagined how far this speech would have gone. He would have not allowed the moment to pass. But this is the man we celebrate. He warned us then, as I said, that this bill was dangerous for democracy. Much has occurred over the years, and we have seen the improvement, electoral reform. But today, we celebrate free and fair elections, we celebrate the democracy. But we must never ever forget the pallbearers of democracy. And Comrade Chase was one of those. In 1968, he sailed not away from politics, but with politics into a new area, and that is the legal profession. Much has been already said about his exploits in the courtroom. I can only add at this stage that he's written himself into constitutional and labor law's history. He has earned himself the title of a legal lion. Pauline, you have much more to do. It was through his success in cases such as Timal versus the Guyana Sugar Corporation Limited and Muhammad Ali versus the Attorney General of Guyana. And you know, these cases are so important that every time someone associated with the labor portfolio or Attorney General speak in Parliament, this is the go-to case. This is the handbook. I see C. Paul laughing, even C. Paul now. This is the handbook for these guys. All workers of Guyana owe an eternal debt of gratitude to Ashton Chase for the legal victories he and others secure on their behalf. Now, I want to make this point. Not because you see a name in a case meant that that case was associated to that person. All of Comrade Chase's battle, retired Justice Ramsden here too, their battle resounded to the benefit of all of Guyana. And that is the context of his battles. All workers of this country must be grateful to this legend that is before us. Ashton Chase was part of the legal team, and I know former President Ramotar and the leadership of the PPP would want me to say this. Comrade Chase was part of the legal team that represented Arnold Rampersad. Ashton Chase was a symbol of grace and elegance. In all that I've said, this man was a symbol of grace and elegance. Two of the things Pauline took from him fully. Pauline is my good friend. I can rub her anytime. He has a dignified presence that resonated with the weight of his conviction and the wisdom of the years of struggle within the union movement. The Cooperative Republic of Guyana has honored him deservedly with the nation's highest national award, the Order of Excellence. Today, as we say goodbye to Comrade Ashton Chase, we do so fully aware of his selfless service to our country. We do so with pride in our hearts that he walked and worked among us. His life reminds us that our sole purpose in this human existence is service to humanity. Today, he leaves us the same way I would like to leave, with pieces of cotton that symbolizes the simplicity of his human form. But beyond those pieces of cotton, he leaves us with a rich history of service, selflessness, and upliftment of Guyana and the Guyanese people. He is a national treasure. On behalf of the government and people of the Cooperative Republic of Guyana, and on my own behalf and that of my family, I extend heartfelt condolences to his wife, children, relatives, and all those who mourn his passing. Before I go, I want to say to the grandchildren of Comrade Chase, you have a very important responsibility of living the legacy of this legend, of ensuring that in your life, henceforth, the character, dignity, honor of this man is reflected in the way you carry your life forward. I thank you, and God bless you.
Thank you, Your Excellency, and this brings us to the end of the proceedings this morning. We are going to move from here to passing through Nasi headquarters for a brief stop, and then to the Good Hope crematorium, where the body will be cremated. We thank all of you for being part of this memorable but sad occasion, an occasion which we say farewell. Dear brother, dear comrade, dear friend, may your soul rest in peace.